Okay then, friendos, what up? Welcome back. We're talking about Randy Pitchford today, and of course his latest snafu, let's call it, when talking about video game monetization, and particularly who's a fan of Borderlands, as well as what you should be willing to do as a fan of Borderlands, or you're not really a fan at all. So Randy Pitchford, if you don't know, the guy at Gearbox, you know, the big name, the big man himself, he basically decided to go on social media and cross-post the promotion of Nintendo of America talking about, Borderlands 4 coming to the Switch 2. And he just said, I'm so very excited for Nintendo Switch 2, and I'm even more excited to bring Borderlands 4 to this incredible magical machine. Fair enough, cool. Totally within his right to do. The issue is where this person asks him, well, not so much asks him, but tells him that the game shouldn't cost $80. And he says, it better not cost $80. Don't take that risk. A lot of gamers aren't going to pay $80 and feed this notion of constant increase of the price tag. True. That you are the CEO. You have some say with the price when it comes to your publisher. Now, the first part of this, completely true. The second part of this, not really. The idea that you have some say with a publisher is if the publisher doesn't own your company. If the publisher does own your company, you have about as much say as I have say to my landlord. Like, I want to not pay rent this month. Unlucky, you're paying the rent. Like, that's kind of the situation here. They own your company. What they say goes. You can give your input. You can say, oh, I think it'd be better. Here's maybe some analysis. Here's some market data to prove that $70 would be better, or, let's go crazy and go back to $60. But ultimately, they can just turn around and go, no, it's $80. And you can stamp your feet. You can throw the fucking toys out the pram. It makes absolutely zero difference. They are going to do what they're going to do, and they own everything to do with what you're doing. So fucking unlucky. Part and parcel with selling your company to a large publisher. So Randy responds and says, A, not my call. True. Now, this is the part where he steps into his own shit, basically, like a banana peel, and just falls over. He must be wearing some shiny shoes or something. He's on the fucking dance floor. He's just slippering around as soon as he says this. If you're a real fan, cut. Get him out of here. Fucking somebody needs to come in and just drag him off the stage right here. You've already done. How you write this out as somebody who's been in charge of a video game studio for decades at this point, how you write this out on social media and think, 2 lines. If you're a real fan, you're fucking delusional, brother. You're out your mind. As soon as you wrote that, the beginning of this sentence, somebody should have come in and fucking pulled the Ethernet out your computer. If you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store, here we go, some fucking boomer talk for you. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. What this little story does is, what it's supposed to do in Randy Pitchford's mind is to illustrate to you that he's a true gamer. He's a real fan. And if he could be working a piss poor job getting minimum wage selling ice cream out of high school in 1991, then surely you can find $80 in 2025 to buy a game, or you're just not a real fan. Now, there's a few issues with this argument. One, it's not 1991 anymore. I don't know if you know this, Randy, but people's level of income has not necessarily moved up in terms of like the cost of living and things like that, generally. Two, in 1991, games had to cost $80 because there was almost no fucking games, and it was such a niche that they had to sell them for more money because there was hardly anybody fucking buying them. Three, it was a full complete game on there that didn't sell DLC later on that allowed you to recoup more expenses at the cost of the integrity of the video game. 4, there was no DLCs, which I guess you could lump into 3 if you wanted. And 5, just because you spent money back then on a game that was overly expensive shouldn't mean that people have to do it now, especially because with it not being 1991, we have access to an unprecedented level of services and things to do, not just in the video game industry, but in the world, that you didn't have in 1991. You didn't have hundreds, thousands of free-to-play games releasing every year or two in 1991 that you could just pay $0 for, log in and spend thousands of hours playing. You didn't have all these live service games. You didn't have all these 20 years of Game of the Year contender games that you can log on now and buy for $1 to $3 each during a sale. You didn't have games coming out from indie and AA studios that are charging $30, $40, $50 that are better than what's being produced by AAA companies multiple times per year at this point. Like, the idea that something used to be more expensive during 1991 when it was a complete niche industry and completely different from what it is now, you can now charge $80. It just doesn't exist. And anyone who makes this point that, oh yeah, things used to be more expensive in gaming, so why can't it be equal to now, adjusted for inflation, would be considerably cheaper. Remove all the DLCs from your games, give it for free with development after the fact of release. Remove all the things in the cash shop, all the skins, all the promotional things that you do. Then we'll have a conversation. Until you do that, this is a completely null point. Like, this is irrelevant. Now, I'm not somebody who thinks that games should be free, or that even the idea of increasing games to $80 is outlandish, because there are certain companies who can do this, and they've built up such an extensive goodwill that I know if I buy the game on release day for $80, I am going to get $80 worth out of that game. But at the same time, the vast majority of games that come out simply are not worth $80. They're not worth $70. They're not worth $60. They're probably not worth $50. Because just like I talked about with the free games, the stuff we have access to, the thousands of games that are in my Steam library, my Epic Games library, and not on libraries, like, you've got to think, if your game is such good value that it's amazing and you think people are going to spend $80 on it, I've got news for you, but I can wait 6 months and buy it for $40 with all the DLCs, with the patches that have made it more run better, with better optimization. I can just wait. Like, and so can everybody else. There is no longer a world in which you're going to be selling crazy numbers for like middle of the road game franchises for $80. Game Pass exists. Why the fuck would I spend $80 on your game when I can go spend $20 for a month of Game Pass and play like 50 of the best games made in the last 10 years for that $20? Like, the value proposition that you're trying to tell me exists for your game is simply delusional. Like, this is not a matter of me not thinking games should cost money. This is a matter of your game is probably not going to be the game of the year, and even if it was, it will still be game of the year in 6 months' time when it's half the fucking price. The fact that he felt comfortable to put this on fans, you're not a real fan if you won't spend whatever we decide well, not we, but the publisher decides. It's not even your fucking decision, mate. Like, why are you putting yourself in front of the crosshair on this one? You could just say, this is my opinion about video games. Don't do the real fan thing. Bit of PR advice for you on that one. You could just say, this is my opinion about the price of video games, and I know a lot of people won't agree with me, but this is how I feel. I don't mind spending $80 because I have the means to, because I'm a rich man. But ultimately, it's not my call. And then I'd be like, yeah, fair enough. You know, that's his opinion. We're all entitled to him, especially somebody who works in the industry. Fair enough. Or you could have just said, unfortunately, this is out of my hands. I don't make this decision. The publisher does, which you kind of did in this video anyway. Seems incredibly silly to make yourself a headline here. And ultimately, this will impact sales. Will it be a crazy amount? Who knows? If the game's good enough, the game's always going to sell no matter what the price is. And that's evidenced by something like Grand Theft Auto 6. If GTA 6 releases and it's as good as GTA 5, they could charge $150 for that fucking game and people will still buy it. Like, it just is what it is. This is the world we live in. If you can make a product that is so valuable to people, they will pay an unreasonable price to play it. Is Borderlands 4 going to be that? No. But that's when you're talking about like a generational game. If From Software said tomorrow, oh, Dark Souls 5 releases tomorrow and it's going to be $90, you know what people would do? They'd go, fucking hell, $90 is a lot. Pre-order. It would be in their cart. They'd look at the trailer, they'd be like, man, that's some epic music. Add to cart. Like, do you want to check out now or do you want to add something else? Oh, is there DLC for the unreleased game yet? Add to cart. Like, they wouldn't give a fuck because that company has proved those games are worth almost whatever they'd want to charge for it. There'll be conversations where people will say you can't charge $80 for a video game in 2025. And what you have to do is remove the context of you as like a general term and just point to Gearbox and say you can't charge $80. Other companies, some of them absolutely can, and people will have no problem with it. There might be a little bit of piss and moaning on social media, but ultimately, some game creators, some studios, Witcher 4, if that released tomorrow at $80, some people might complain, but a lot of people would just be saying, nah, bro, Witcher 3 was so good, I don't give a fuck, I'm paying the $80. Was the last 6 or 7 years of Borderlands so good that people are going to say the same thing about Borderlands 4? No, probably not. The thing is I consider myself a fan of Borderlands games. And I was looking forward to Borderlands 4. It looks cool. It looks like it's going to be a fun Borderlands game, something I'll play for maybe a week. And then maybe 2 years on, when all the DLC is out, I'll go back and play it for another week, and then I'll just never touch the game again. Kind of what I've done with the other games. I consider myself a fan of Borderlands. But you know what I'm more of a fan of? People not talking down to me about whether or not I'm a fan, depending on how much money I'm willing to throw at a product, which is all you are to me. And more than a fan of Borderlands, I'm a fan of saving fucking money and value. And there's only maybe like 3 or 4 companies that I can list off the top of my head in the AAA video game space where I would consider $80 for day one of a single or co-op game to be value. And Borderlands is definitely not there, and it's not going to be there for many people. Also, while we're on the topic of $80 video games, there's obviously numbers going around and conversations going around about certain games costing $80, and he even mentions it in this video where he talks about Nintendo and Microsoft. And I don't think Randy Pitchford is a moron, but what he said in this instance, he either is or he's like being disingenuous when he says it. He says, oh, you know, Nintendo and Microsoft are pushing this trend of $80 games, and, you know, we might be following in line with that. You know why Microsoft and Nintendo can charge $80 for video games? Nintendo can do it because it's a walled garden, and they can charge whatever the fuck they want on Switch, because the people that own a Switch and buy Nintendo games are like, they're the most... It's not an incredibly small niche, obviously. People love Nintendo. But it's the type of person to be on the Nintendo ecosystem is the kind of person that they're just going to buy the Nintendo games for $80 because they're just Nintendo gamers. Like, they get the value out of them. It's like a nostalgia console. Like, Nintendo's a nostalgia company. It's kind of what they've been forever. And Microsoft do it because they literally are trying to price you out of spending $80 so that you subscribe to Game Pass, because all of their games are day one on Game Pass. They don't give a fuck if you spend $80. Microsoft could up that to $100 tomorrow for their newly released games that day one on Game Pass. And you know what it'll do? It'll make people piss and moan on social media, but it'll make most of the people subscribe to Game Pass, and that's all they care about. They don't give a fuck if you're going to spend the $80 to buy the game. They want you to go on Game Pass. That's why they're doing that. And if you do buy for $80, congratulations, they've got your $80. Like, it is what it is. So this idea that you're following suit, you're not. You're not Nintendo, and you don't have Game Pass. Like, you're just going to make people not buy the game. That's all that's going to happen. And I have to believe you know that. Then you're just kind of like running cover for the publisher or something because, you know, they're your bosses, or you're stupid. It's one of those two things. I don't see a third option, because I'm stupid and even I can see this. It's the exact same concept that you brought up about buying the fucking game for $80 back in 1991. There was a reason they could charge $80 for it back then. That reason no longer exists, and you don't have a reason that it should exist now. You saying, oh, we spent way more money to make it is fucking irrelevant. There's a very simple cost analysis here when it comes to how much something costs. You need to recoup your losses, understandable. You need to make profit. It's a company, understandable. But if something costs $70 and it sells half as much as something that's $40, which makes more money? The thing that's sold for $40 and sold twice as much, because 40 times by 2 is 80, which is more than 70. You better be selling a fucking amazing game for $80 if you think people are going to be buying it. And realistically, I think this is only going to harm the game. I think you doing this on social media is going to harm the game as well. And it's a shame because most of the press around Borderlands 4 has been, at least from what I've seen, positive, and the game looks cool. But, you know, I guess that's what you get for having your own social media account as a person in charge of a video game company. Sometimes you just post to make yourself look like a twat, and also harm your fucking video game in the process. But we'll have to wait and see. It doesn't seem like he wants to walk it back. He just wants to post about the truth. This is the thing. This comment does kind of sum it up pretty well. It says, perfect response, should have been left at this. I don't think it was a great response in the video personally, but it is what it is. Your second response is receiving backlash, not because of the price of the game, but because of the wording. It's both. Like, it is what it is. We can stomp our feet, but games are going to be $80. People are going to follow suit, not understanding. And some of these companies are going to fail based on exactly this decision. Because, again, we're in an interesting time in the video game industry. Investment is down to an almost record low of the last decade. There's less money coming in. There's less people playing video games than the last, 5 years overall. The money coming into video games from consumers has plateaued. And it's only going to get harder for companies to make money from their products as the price goes up, because every year there's just more games you can play for less and less money. So there's no reason to buy the newest games, especially with subscription services coming out. They're going to put real pressure on the market to not increase their price. And when you think about value proposition, $80 for a game you might play for a week compared to $20 for a library of hundreds of games. Like, unless you are a mega diehard fan of that game, you're simply not going to do it. Or it's like an actual Game of the Year contender, one of those where people are saying, word of mouth, you can't miss playing this. And if Borderlands 4 was going to be that, there would have been no reason to go on social media and talk about this. You could have just shut the fuck up and people would have paid it and nobody would have complained. But, you know, we'll wait and see. The game will ultimately sell or not sell based on the merit of the game. Like I said, FromSoft could do this. Grand Theft Auto can do this. There's a bunch of companies. CD Projekt can do this. There are a bunch of companies where this is not going to be an issue. And this whole controversy, other than people looking at Randy Pitchford like, wow, this guy's a fucking dick for saying the whole, you know, real fan thing. If the game's good enough, nobody's going to care that it's $10 more. That's just the fact of the matter. It is what it is. And that's going to be true for literally any game. The fact he didn't come out and say, oh yeah, I worded that badly and I didn't mean to disrespect our fans, because ultimately, what is a video game? It's a thing, it's a product that is released that lives or dies by people buying it, by the fans, the people who want to play the game. If you're just going to say, you're not a real fan, well, fuck you then, nobody buys the game. And where's that leave your company? It's just not a good look to do. But then again, just add him to the pile of fucking, you know, big names in the video game industry that just says dumb shit and doesn't really understand. And then apparently just doesn't walk it back, even though, you know, a fucking 5-year-old could tell you this was the wrong thing to post on social media. Especially considering the amount of, like, people that are going to latch onto the topic of the game being $80 anyway. And you know people are pocket watching SteamDB now for every single game release that they don't like. Oh, it didn't get more than this game, so it's a failure. Do I have access to the numbers of how much it cost or what it sold on other systems? No, but it's a failure because it didn't sell as much on Steam on day one. You know that's going on, and you're still posting this. It's dumb as fuck, but there we go. Good old overly long, rambly video for no reason. It's probably that Red Bull, to be honest. Thanks for watching as always. Check out the links in the video description. You can go buy some Gamer Subs. I'm wearing my lovely Gamer Subs. I'm almost showing my feet there. Fucking put your dick away, bastard. Yeah, it's the caffeine, I swear. Go buy Gamer Subs stuff. These are the most comfortable fucking sweats ever. full stop. They're also just really cool looking. Use my link, you get a discount. I get money back off anything you spend. They have like a JoJo promotion or something. If you're an anime fan, like, you should probably take a look at that because it looks really cool. Unfortunately, I can't pull it up because my computer seems to be crashing right now. I can't open my Discord. But yeah, check it out, and I'll see you on the next one. Suggest content you want to see me cover. I'll see you next time. Peace.